and let us all do we can to build a better future.
All right, so Bernie Sanders was recently on the news today, where we were getting his opinion about basically the Build Back Better, Mansion and Cinema, and what's going to be happening during this midterm election cycle. Unfortunately, I will have to say some of the Bernie Sanders answers will upset a lot of you, and it's at this point, while I do respect the words of Bernie Sanders and how he has inspired a lot of people to wake up and realize that we are in a sick system, I think at this point we have to look at different leadership right now. Bernie Sanders was somebody who inspired me to get involved in media and actually build this network up. But I am not inspired, and I really find it hard to believe that Bernie Sanders is playing this kind of back and forth game with the Democratic Party. But then again, seeing as how he turned a blind eye to the election fraud during the 2016 and 2020 Democratic primaries, it's quite clear that Bernie Sanders is still sheepdogging for the DNC. So let's play this first video from Case Study QB. It's from MSNBC. Let's play in its full entirety.
Good to be with you, Tom.
Let me just start. Give me your take about why the president and the Democratic Party are in this precarious political situation right now at the start of the second year of the presidency.
I will tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why. I think the president and the Democratic Congress started off very, very strongly. They looked at the economic crisis that was caused by COVID. We stood up strongly, and we passed the American Rescue Plan, which did an enormous amount in revitalizing our economy, put money into the hands of working people, put money into hospitals and into health care, lowered childhood poverty by 40% by putting direct payments in the hands of working-class parents all over this country. We were off to a great start. And we also passed along the way.
All right, Bernie, I don't know what reality you're living in. Maybe you're in the Washington, D.C. swamp bubble for too long, and maybe the gases are messing with your brain, or no one's telling you what's really happening outside. But the price of gasoline and food are rising. Americans are still being evicted from their homes and apartments. Small business owners are still losing everything. There's still an ongoing crisis. We don't have Medicare for all. We don't have UBI. We don't have Federal Jobs Guarantee Act. That $2,000 check, we got $1,400, and the Biden-Harris administration had the audacity, as well as your friends and colleagues in the United States Senate and House, had the audacity to say $600 plus $1,400 is $2,000. No. We were promised $2,000 for that stimulus check, which a lot of Americans still haven't gotten. So the first year started off great. What do you mean great? Pramila Jayapal and her Build Back Better, and let's keep it on this video real quick. Pramila Jayapal video, Build Back Better, started at $7 trillion, lowered down to $1.75 trillion. The Biden-Harris administration bent over backwards to appease the Senate parliamentarian. The Biden-Harris administration ignored their $15 minimum wage. They ignored it all. What are you talking about? It started off great. Oh, the delusion that, we beat Trump, the orange boogeyman? He's going to run again in 2024. Let's play the rest of it.
The strongest infrastructure bill that has been passed since Dwight D. Eisenhower in order to rebuild our crumbling roads and bridges and water systems, expand broadband, and create many, many hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs. We were off to a great start, and then I will tell you exactly what happened. 50 members of the Republican Party decided that they were going to be obstructionists, that they were not going to help us address the crises facing working families, not going to deal with the existential threat of climate, not going to be dealing with the high cost of prescription drugs, the need to expand Medicare, the need to improve home health care, et cetera, et cetera. And then you had two United States senators joining them, Mr. Manchin and Senator Sinema. And then for 5 months now, there have been negotiations behind closed doors trying to get these senators, these two Democratic senators, on board. That strategy, in my view, Chuck, has failed. Yeah. It has failed dismally. We saw it last week in terms of the Voting Rights Act. We now need a new direction, in my view, and that is to take it to the Republicans, to bring important pieces of legislation that impact the lives of working families on the floor of the Senate. And if the Republicans want to vote to protect the wealthy and the powerful, that's their right. Let the American people see what's happening.
So you think this really is a
You know, we get a lot of pushback from a lot of liberal viewers, vote blue no matter who crowd, some progressives too, saying, well, how come you don't push back at the Republicans or the Republican politicians, not voters? Big difference. We go after politicians. The Republican Party, these lawmakers who are in the Senate and House, I know for a fact will never fight for Medicare for all, UBI, or any other progressive policy. They're never going to do it. To assume that they're going to go along and not be obstructionists, well, you're an idiot then if you don't think that they won't do that. However, the Biden-Harris administration made themselves very clear that they're willing to compromise on a compromise on a compromise. Bernie, that Build Back Better started at $7 trillion, and it was your fellow Democratic colleague, Joe Manchin, that kept on pushing the progressives, especially the head of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, from that $7 trillion down to $1.75 trillion. And $1.75 trillion is not enough to invest into our infrastructure. At the bare minimum, we need about $10 trillion to reinvest into America's crumbling infrastructure. But sadly, we live in a world where our lawmakers are easily corrupt and have a lot of influence, especially if they have corporations backing them up. Manchin and Sinema were always at the White House, always invited there, always had a lot of face-to-face time with your good friend Joe Biden. Bernie, how many times have you been invited to the White House and talked to your good friend Joe Biden? Probably not a whole lot compared to Manchin and Sinema. So the thing is, it's easy to blame the Republican Party. We know what to expect from the Republican lawmakers. We know what to expect from them. But the Democratic Party, they're just as corrupt. And here we have Bernie Sanders trying to just blame Manchin and Sinema. It didn't have to be Manchin and Sinema. It could have been any other blue dog Democrat in the United States Senate. This is how corrupt the system is. And this is where I have to say, I respect the words that Bernie Sanders said in 2016 and 2020. I don't know how fully authentic they are now. But he woke a lot of people up in the fact that we live in a corrupt system. But obviously at this point, this is not the man to carry the banner for a better future. Because he's still saying that now we have to start pushing the Democratic agenda, voting things on the Senate floor, when we know for a fact that even Biden won't defend his policies or his promises or follow through with a goddamn thing. Let's play the rest of the video.
Process problem, if you will, tactical problem, not a substance problem. So does this mean you think from the beginning, and I hate you even using the word reconciliation for this audience, you know, we don't want to get mired into that Congress speak there. But do you think that was sort of a mistake, right? Lumping it all in, that there should have been separate votes for everything, or now there should be?
No.
Okay.
No, that is exactly not what I'm saying. What is in the reconciliation bill, and I know that's inside the Beltway, is enormously popular. It's what 70, 80% of the American people, NBC should do a poll. Find out whether the American people want us to take on the greed of the drug companies and lower the cost of prescription drugs. Ask people whether they want to expand Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and eyeglasses. Ask people whether they want to improve home health care, whether we want to deal with climate change. All of those pieces of legislation are enormously popular. The bill itself in its entirety, and the president deserves credit for looking at the real problems facing this country. But what we had is obstructionism from 50 Republicans to Democrats. What we have got to do now is take the issues to the American people. And if the Republicans want to vote against lowering the cost of prescription drugs, they want to continue to give tax breaks to the rich, let them vote that way. Let the American people see what's happening. And then we can come together after these votes to put together the strongest bill that we can.
So I was just going to say, let me play for you something that Ro Khanna, a progressive House member, represents Silicon Valley, what he said about climate and Joe Manchin. And I'm curious what you think of this.
Give him the pen, let him come up with something. I think he's going to come up with something that is going to be extraordinarily much better than nothing on climate.
Are you okay with that strategy now, or do you want to go through the votes first, and then you're like, okay, if all I can get is what I can get from Manchin, I'll take it?
Look, as a tactical issue, you know, you have been around long enough to know that funny things happen when a bill gets to the floor. Clearly, we have got to deal with the enormous crisis of climate. Let's put a strong bill on the floor. And if Mr. Manchin and Ms. Sinema want to vote against the...
Now, we've been hearing a lot of word salads from Bernie Sanders. Now, look, Forget giving Manchin a pen. He was able to dictate to the Congressional Progressive Chair, Representative Pramila Jayapal, to lower Build Back Better from $7 trillion to $1.75 trillion. And now, even then, Manchin wants to lower it even further. And Pramila Jayapal, as we've covered on this show, is more than willing to negotiate a lowering price. No matter what, Bernie, what you should have done way early on, if you maybe had the backbone to do so, was, I don't know, maybe start a third-party movement, maybe cause a revolution, a real political movement that could actually bring in change. But you're too afraid. You were afraid of Trump in 2016 and afraid of Trump getting reelected in 2020. And obviously you wanted to fall in line with the Democratic talking points and didn't want to be smeared by corporate media, even though corporate media and the Democratic establishment was smearing and disrespecting your voters, your followers, your supporters, your staff members, all that good stuff. The thing is, the Democratic Party, they know what they're doing. They're not going to fight for any of these issues, and you're going to bat for them, and assuming that people are going to be sheepdogged into the two-party system. Right now, Biden's approval rating is in the low 20s. He is struggling because he couldn't get anything done. All that compromise that you did, and even bowing out of the race in 2020, you got nothing in return. So, Bernie, you're saying a lot of good stuff. I agree. These are words. But the follow-through? That's never going to happen with the Democratic Party. It's really sad to see just how far he has fallen, how much hope he still has in his colleagues in the Senate and House and in the Biden-Harris administration, where nothing got done in 2021, the first big year. Nothing happened except, oh, the orange boogeyman was out of the White House. He's running again in 2024. Let's play the rest of the video.
Or whatever, Republicans want to vote against it, we can go from there. But what we cannot continue to do, in my view, is these endless backroom negotiations. The American people have got to see where we are, and after that happens, we'll do the best that we possibly can.
Do you think, though, it's been healthy for the Democratic Party to highlight the division in the party? You know, you look at Senator Sinema, she was censured by the Arizona Democratic Party over what some will look at as a disagreement over tactics, not over substance, but over tactics. Do you think that was an appropriate action?
Yeah, I do. I think it's exactly right. Look, on that issue of voting rights, this is something that's almost different than anything else. What that is that right now you have a Republican Party under Trump's leadership that is perpetuating this big lie that Trump actually won the election. And therefore, you have 19 Republican states that are moving very aggressively into voter suppression, into extreme gerrymandering. Some of these states are doing away with the powers of independent election officials. They are moving in a very, very anti-democratic way. And it was absolutely imperative that we change the rules so that we could pass strong voting rights legislation. All Republicans voted against us. 2 Democrats voted against us. That was a terrible, terrible vote. And I think what the Arizona Democratic Party did was exactly right.
Let me ask you this. As you know, I'm going to have my next guest, Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin. She's part of some swing district members of Congress that wanted also a retooling, but in a different way. Would like to see more compromising focus on the inflation and COVID issue right now. Essentially, while agreeing with you that the ideas are popular, voters are worried about near-term issues right now, and that's what's better for the midterms. What do you say to her?
Well, I think in a sense that's right. We can chew bubblegum and walk at the same time. And my own view, if you want to do things that are important and are politically effective, what you got to do is talk to where the American people are. They want action on COVID. That is exactly right. Let's do it. They want action on prescription drugs. They want action on home health care. They want action on climate. We have got to revitalize the Senate. We've got to bring these bills to the floor. We've got to debate them. And I think at the end of that debate, when we see how things shake out, we can then pass strong legislation which will help all Democratic candidates, because you have a Republican Party right now which is playing the obstructionist role. They stand for nothing except for wanting to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
Very quickly, as perhaps the leading progressive voice in the Democratic coalition, can President Biden count on your vote in the Senate with almost any compromise he comes up with Manchin?
No, you got to look at, no, absolutely not. You're going to have to look at what that so-called compromise is. If it's strong, if it protects the needs of working people, if it deals with climate, I'm there. But we have to look at the details of any proposal.
All right. Senator Bernie Sanders, the progressive independent senator from Vermont, appreciate you coming on and sharing your.
Prepare to be disappointed, however which way it'll play out, because Bernie Sanders will probably, again, give his vote to Biden and Harris, and that's how it will play out. That's the story. That's what's to be expected at this point in time. Look, Bernie Sanders is saying a lot of good things, but it's word salad. It's word salad to us, and this is how, again, the Democrats are walking into a slaughter. I have two other videos that will go into detail. A huge shout again to Case Study QB, where I want to play once FaZe gets that first video set up, or the second video set up about what the Democrats are walking into, and that is a slaughter in the midterms. Now, Bernie can speak a good game. He could say that the Republicans are going to be obstructionists, but the blue dog Democrats are the obstructionists. And if the Democratic Party is their own worst enemy, they were able to not get anything done throughout all of 2021, didn't follow through with any of their promises, and this year, we're looking at the Democrats losing seats of power. Let's play this first video.
This past week or so made another effort to get their voting rights through the legislation through the Senate, and that failed. And it's not clear what the federal legislation path for federal legislation will be going forward. But tell us, how are the states taking up the fight?
Well, that's where a lot of people are looking to now, since they've failed to do this with Congress, failed to do this nationally. A lot of lawmakers, and especially at the state level, are looking how they can take it local. And we're seeing a lot of ballot initiatives in Kentucky, Wisconsin, across Florida that are looking at how they can do these state ballot initiatives to try and change the level or change these voting rights at the state and local level. The problem is, though, this is a lot of Democrats, right, who are trying to change these laws. They're meeting so much opposition in red and purple states. Republicans have over 90 bills across the country that they've already introduced that they're looking to, prevent a lot of these Democratic efforts from expanding voting initiatives. And so it's just going to be another continued battle. I think, of course, what happened in Congress this week, the failed effort by Democrats and President Biden to get that sweeping voting rights bill across the finish line, it makes it very difficult. And it also is a signal to a lot of these state election exodus that it's going to be really hard to get change. And I think it was a defeat not only for those nationally, but also at the state level.
White House officials have signaled to me there's certainly something the president's still going to be talking about, and they're exploring some executive orders and actions to strengthen voting rights, but they acknowledge their hands may be tied for sweeping national legislation.
Okay, so why is that video important? Because during this midterm election cycle, not only will there be national elections for the U.S. Senate and House, but there's also going to be elections at the state level, governor races, state houses that are going to be up as well. And the thing is, if you're part of the Democratic Party, good luck with saying that you have a lot to run on, because there isn't. And this is why I'm hoping for this midterm election cycle, we might see something different. I hope. Now, what I want and what's going to happen are two different things, but I do hope that enough voters wake up to the fact that if you participate in the Republican Party or Democratic Party, you're just a good puppet. I want to see people supporting good ballot initiatives and see actually people support building infrastructure for movements and third parties outside of the influence from Washington, D.C. I hope to see that. I want to see the rise of that, the beginning of it. I got another video from Case Study QB. Let's play it as well.
Today is looking at how essentially in races across the country, in 19 House races across 12 states, we're seeing this breeding ground really for extremist candidates ahead of the midterm elections. And this is really because in a lot of these districts, they're open seats, so incumbents aren't running. And that's really a breeding ground for a lot of this, extremism and ideological warfare. We see, I think, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, who we see as hard-right extremist partisans, but in 12 of these 19 districts, they're actually Democratic. And so we're going to see a rise of this, I think, in the lead up to the midterms and potentially after November, where the polarization in these districts only continues to grow.
Certainly on the Republican side, it'll be interesting to see the role that former President Trump plays, that if he gives his backing to some of these extremist candidates, that may give them a leg up in the primary process, but could make them tougher to be elected in the general elections. That's certainly a good story. We will be watching that.
Now, why did I play that video as well? It's following up with the other two videos, especially with Bernie Sanders, is because if we rewind back the clocks to 2010, the Tea Party was able to get their way. The Tea Party was able to shake up the Republican Party and establish themselves as key players. A lot of these candidates that are working to get Trump's support, let's face it, Trump still has some political capital, some political influence in this midterm election cycle, and we'll see how long that will last and really how much of an influence he will have over how elections will play across this entire country. But the Democrats, failing as they always do, knowing what they're doing, they're just creating an environment for themselves so that if they potentially lose the House and Senate, they have plenty of propaganda to run on to convince people, oh, please donate to us, give us money, give us money, give us money. We need to start talking about third parties because we're seeing history repeat itself over and over again. No matter who's in the White House, be it Democrat or Republican, or who controls the U.S. Senate or House, be it Democrat or Republican or it's 50-50, nothing's going to fundamentally change until we break away from the two-party system. I did hope that Bernie Sanders would wake up to that lesson, but obviously he ain't going to do it, so the ball's in our court.